You see a bus go by?
Life, it's a process. It's a process of discovery, of uncovering the myriad of wonders that surround us. It's a process of balance. It's a process of exploring.
I'm coming. Go on.
And coming back to our center again. Frederic and I were in the middle of raising 3 small children.
What are we doing?
Making a party for parents.
In our role as parents, we were trying to create a peaceful and playful environment where learning about the world could unfold.
Il est vert?
Non,
Il est orange?
non,
Il est quoi?
rouge.
Ah bon, rouge, oui.
It all began at the little show at Paris's nursery school before summer vacation. I remember looking at him through the video camera and thinking, that's strange, he doesn't seem very happy, which was so rare for him. One day to another, almost a few days after he turned 2, we noticed he started asking for water. And he would come and he would guzzle 2 or 3 full glasses. And I didn't think anything of it because it's July, it's summer, we're in Spain, he's home running around after his sister. And then it only made sense that drinking so much water, he would make big diapers. And he started melting away. The next night, Paris collapses to the floor. And I remember driving to the hospital, running in with him in my arms and saying to the nurses, he's losing weight, he's melting before our eyes. And 1 minute later, a doctor came back to me and said, your son seems to have type 1 diabetes. And I remember thinking, I don't know anything about diabetes. I had heard the word. I knew it had something to do with something called insulin, and it had to do with getting shots every day. That's all I knew. For the next 7 days, Paris and I lived at the hospital while I learned how to take care of him. There's no time to get used to diabetes. Your child needs injections to survive. That first night in the hospital, I tearfully asked the doctor if it was something I'd done. Had I caused diabetes by giving Paris too much sugar? He said every parent asks that question, but the answer is no. Might Paris outgrow it? No, he said again. Once the pancreas stops making insulin, it never regains that function. Paris will have diabetes for life. In those first few days, the outside world ceased existing for me. Learning to give injections was painful for all of us.
I don't know why I'm recording this, but just for, I guess, documentation's sake.
It was overwhelming because there was so much to learn. Weighing food, counting rations, calculating insulin, doing tests to measure his blood sugar. Learning when he needed extra insulin to correct a high number, and when his numbers were too low and needed fast sugar in food. Sometimes all we could do was make it from one meal to the next. When Paris was sleeping, I didn't feel very brave. But then Frederic and the girls would visit and he'd remind me I wasn't alone. We were a whole family. And that made a big difference. Frederic would leave work every day to attend classes with me to learn how to manage diabetes. We were really a team taking care of him. The situation I found myself in was being alone in an almost empty hospital in July and having a 2-year-old to entertain all day. Kids are so resilient, able to have fun in the most unusual of circumstances. I was so grateful to family and friends who took care of the girls because I couldn't be in 2 places at once. When I learned that Paris absorbed insulin much better when he exercised, we began exploring the halls for adventure.
Oh, what? Great, we could just put chairs here and just hang out.
But on the morning of the 3rd day, though I still felt in a state of shock, I slipped out of bed while Paris was sleeping and stood looking at myself in the bathroom mirror. And something happened. I felt the power of life striving to lift my heart up. Suddenly, I understood. All I had to do was put my arms around this present moment. Take care of just one moment, one day at a time.
You're so fast!
Armed with our new knowledge, I knew we were going to be living a different life. But I also believed we were going to find our way back to joy.
These are the kind of restaurants we can go to that are empty.
It was indeed a new lifestyle. No meal was carefree anymore. We had to weigh, measure, count, calculate, and administer insulin at every meal. But no one said we couldn't still have fun. Besides administering insulin, constantly measuring Paris's blood sugar was the most important thing we did.
Sit down.
People living without diabetes have blood sugar levels naturally maintained around 100 all day long. For Paris, a healthy range extends between 70 and 170.
Okay.
Symptoms of low blood sugar can be sweating, dizziness, fatigue, and sudden changes in personality, such as being aggressive or sad. If Paris was lower than 70, we gave him a form of fast sugar, such as fruit juice.
Up in the sky.
Symptoms of high blood sugar can be extreme hunger and thirst, frequent urination, followed by nausea and vomiting. If his blood sugar was higher than 200, we gave him an extra dose of insulin.
Well, since you're not on a cement, you can take it up.
Diabetes occurs when the pancreas has stopped producing insulin for reasons still not completely understood. So insulin is needed from an outside source for Paris
1, 2, 3, 4.
to survive.
Okay. So now you see, Antje, you can go touch that tower.
Once, just a few weeks out of the hospital, when I was still learning how to manage diabetes, I accidentally gave Paris an overdose of insulin. His blood sugar level at bedtime had been very high, over 300, so I had given him an extra injection. Yet when I measured his blood sugar 1 hour later, it hadn't gone down, so I gave him another injection of insulin. It was the middle of the night, and I knew I had to do an additional test in half an hour to make sure he was going down, but not dropping too fast. But I fell asleep. I didn't hear my alarm go off. Only 15 minutes later, I woke up on my own and in a panic raced into Paris's room where he was sound asleep. I did a test and the monitor said low, which meant his blood sugar was so low the monitor couldn't even find enough sugar to measure. I remember thinking, don't panic, stay calm, think. I quickly squirted 2 glucosports into his mouth, which he swallowed even though he was sleeping. and I lay down next to him and gave him a bottle of chocolate milk, which he also drank. As I stayed there with my arms around him, grateful I had wakened up to find him that low, suddenly his whole body went rigid, and he screamed, "Mama," terrified. And I realized he was having convulsions. I yelled for Frederic, and when he saw what was happening, he raced to get the emergency glucagon shot we always keep in the refrigerator. Frederic immediately gave Paris the injection in his thigh, and his whole body went limp. We didn't know what had just happened, and I thought, I've killed my son. An eternal minute later, Paris opened his eyes and said, "I'm a little bit okay now." His next blood sugar test showed he was up to 50. He was safe.
What's in there? What's in the bag?
After 1 year of Paris receiving daily injections, we began trying an alternative method to giving him insulin, the insulin pump. The pump's mechanism pushes insulin from an inside reservoir through a cable and into a tiny silicone catheter that has been inserted just below the skin. The catheter is inserted with a tiny needle, which is immediately withdrawn, and for the next 2 to 3 days, Paris was pain-free while he received the precisely measured doses of insulin he needed to survive. We were relieved at his bravery, but Paris was more thrilled with his birthday skates.
What is that? And do we do clicks now? Why? Because we have the what? The what? Magic blue box. Okay? No, put it in there, sweetheart. Show, and where's your magic blue box? Okay, let's see it. Doo-doo-doo. I have a kiss for you.
It was the beginning of a new chapter in all our lives. The pump can deliver different rates of insulin to follow Paris's biorhythms that change throughout the day. The pump is sturdy and can withstand stress. Insulin could be suspended while Paris leapt over the edge.
Oh my!
It was waterproof. And though the pump eliminated the need for daily injections, its pain-free delivery system alone would not keep Paris safe. 10 finger-click tests a day helped ensure his blood sugar stayed within a healthy range. Gradually, as he grew, so did his abilities. And with new abilities came new freedom. Freedom to take more responsibility for his own safety and keep his balance. Gone was the little boy wholly dependent upon his parents for his moment-to-moment well-being. With every passing year, he was learning to listen to the signals of his body. Paris was on the road to independence. At school, he was treated as any other student by teachers and any other friend by classmates. He was just one of the crowd, no more, no less. He was someone with a special condition who might need to drink juice in the middle of class if he was low, or get up to drink water if his number was high. Finally, having diabetes was only one part of him.
I help my brother by making it fun for him. Because if not, it's like a scary thing to write your numbers down on a graph. Like, you don't want to do that every day. So you have to make it colorful and fun. And sometimes I offer to do him a control, or he's a good number and I know it, then I had the number, and then I make him guess. So I just try my hardest to keep him actually stable and happy. The hardest thing for me to have a brother living with diabetes is when he gets a lower height.
Imagine I'm 500, or 200. And 10 minutes later, I'm 100. You won't think that's that much. But if you look at it on a graph, it's like a rock falling out from the sky.
Every 3 months, Paris went to the hospital for a revision. A special blood test averaged his blood sugars over the previous months.
Perfect for me, between 150, 145, so 60.
We made this rainbow chart, and he didn't want to go down below, which was the fishies and mermaids into the sea, and he didn't want to go up high into space. He wanted to stay in the rainbow.
When he was little and about to get his injections, I would distract him by dancing around the room. Sometimes it can be pretty difficult when I'm doing something with my mother or with Paris or with my sister, and whenever he's low, we have to stop whatever we're doing and take care of him until we know he's okay to just pick off where we left off.
Living with a child with diabetes is, first of all, it's complicated because it requires attention, a lot of attention, which, parents should give. Most of the time, they can't or they cannot, if, we have the chance, he has the chance of having a mama and a papa, or, a mother and a father to take care of him. Some other kids don't have this chance. So first of all, it's under what conditions the kid is going to be living, with diabetes.
One night when Frederic was away, just after midnight, I found Paris on the floor in the bathroom vomiting. I knew it could be a stomach virus, but with diabetes, high blood sugar should always be ruled out first. Sure enough, his blood sugar was over 400 and he was feeling terrible. I remember thinking, it's not possible. His blood sugar was perfect at bedtime only a few hours ago. I checked his pump cable for possible air bubbles and discovered the cable was actually broken. I knew then I was going to be up all night to test his blood every hour to make sure he was going down, but not too fast. It's a delicate process getting Paris' system back into balance again. Paris woke up in the morning having slept through the night's events. He asked me innocently, "How was my night?" Perfect, no? Yet no matter how well we take care of him all day and all night long, the process starts over again the next day.
The way of going forward is knowing exactly what your body is telling you. They have to be aware and conscious of their condition, which is life-threatening at the end.
I was learning how to give myself insulin, and that night I was having spaghetti, but I gave myself the insulin before. And in the end, I didn't eat all of it. I'm walking to bed, and when I get in bed, I start having a headache, and my big sister said, "Hey Paris, why don't you just do a control? It might be that you're low." And when I did a control, I was 17.
he must have given himself an overdose of insulin and then started to drop really quickly. But Alex and I were almost asleep when we heard everybody running upstairs. I knew right away that it was Paris.
Okay. Stay with me here.
Laisse tes yeux ouverts, chérie. Laisse tes yeux ouverts. Laisse tes yeux ouverts. Titi, s'il te plaît, laisse tes yeux ouverts. Reste là, reste là.
You can lie down and you're going to have your eyes open.
Ouvre tes yeux, ouvre tes yeux.
Okay.
Ouvre tes yeux.
Can you look at Mom?
Titi, ouvre tes yeux, s'il te plaît.
Look this way. Look at Mom this way. It's okay, sweetie. We're here with you.
And then all of a sudden, all my eyesight became blurry and foggy.
Titi,
Look, Alexa, okay? So just
tourne-toi de l'autre côté. Tourne-toi.
Alexa,
Comme ça.
the card book where he finds the little thing in our bathroom. Go. We find the card.
And I was in a dream.
Hi, baby. Hello. You're here. Okay, sweetie.
I was feeling something that was not going right. Like in my body, I could feel something not going right. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do or anything. I was afraid of leaving because I just felt I was just gonna go up and that was the end of me. I started to feel my strength coming back. And then I started to think better because all of a sudden I just wasn't thinking, I was just dreaming. I was just thinking, I didn't know this was real.
I think it was one of the moments where you need to be clear. You need to take the right decisions. And I think I didn't take the right decisions because I should have given you a shot at that time. When you're 17, I should have, give you the shot, and probably you would not have gone so far into low numbers.
Controlando, Paris.
When we moved to Barcelona, everything was new. We were living by the sea. I joined a rowing team, and I got a new team of doctors.
Paris, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo ha ido todo?
Todo bien.
Bien. La entrada de año, las vacaciones.
Fenomenal.
Perfecto.
Por ejemplo, nos ha ido muy bien con chicos que hacen muchísimo deporte a nivel de competición.
After months of training, I earned a seat on Barcelona's crew team at the international rowing competition in Amsterdam. We were all super nervous. I had to be really careful not to mistake my shakiness for low numbers. Before racing, I ate extra rations of carbohydrates to make sure that I had enough sugar to burn while competing. But knowing exactly what your body burns during sports is never easy. That's why constantly checking in with yourself to see how you feel is so important. sometimes even my best calculations beforehand are not enough to prevent a low. Adrenaline can carry you through a race, and if you're excited, you may think you feel fine, but it may not be accurate. One of the symptoms of very low blood sugar is being confused. This is very dangerous because it can prevent you from realizing what you need to do to help yourself. My mother thought I looked out of it. She said I looked dazed and asked me to do a test. When I did a control, it said 28.
How do you feel? You don't feel 28?
I didn't believe it. I thought the monitor must be upside down. It must be 82 because I didn't feel 28. A moment later, I felt really bad and knew the monitor was right. I needed juice. Our team didn't win, but we found out later that we were the only team of our age competing against guys 5 years older. For us, that was reason enough to celebrate. One day, I received a phone call from my school saying there was a new student who had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and I could help him understand a little more easily his new medical condition. I told him about the rainbow that can help keep us safe and sound, and showed him my magic blue box. The day Mark got his pump, he came over to show it to me.
If we can share what we do with others, and it can go further around the world, that would be excellent. Other kids could live more happily.
Mentoring has become so important to me that one day, with the permission of the Town Hall of Barcelona and the Children's Hospital Sant Joan de Déu, we invited more than 30 kids living with type 1 diabetes and their families to come to a park to learn firsthand about living safely in the rainbow.
What a lot of people don't realize is that he needs to have insulin every day, and no insulin, he'll die, and with too much insulin, he'll kill himself. Honestly, it's made the entire family kind of a team because we all have to work on this. It's something that affects the entire family, and we can't separate. We really have to stay together and really be a team.
My message of hope to giving to little kids or to anybody is you always try and listen to your body and don't worry. You'll be fine. You can do anything.